What do you want? It sounds like a vague question, but I'm serious. Why did you get into real estate? Was it fame? Doubtful. Respect? Probably not. The hours? Laugh out loud. Okay, then why? I want to show you how to set goals as a realtor. In my last video, I showed you how to do a powerful 5-minute reverse engineer business plan. But before you can use that method, you must first quantify your goals. That means you need to answer the question, what do you want? And then you break it down into a monthly expense. In Tim Ferriss's famous book, The 4-Hour Workweek, he calls this process Dreamlining, writing down what you want and then turning it into a monthly expense. And so in this video, I'll walk you through the process step by step, and I give you the free tool that I created and that I use that crunches all the numbers for you. By the way, I do a full 1-hour training on this exact topic entitled How to Double Your Business with Reverse Engineering. It goes in depth on this topic and comes with free downloads of 3 new calculators and 3 marketing playbooks to start getting more clients after you have a plan. If you want the training, all you have to do is like this video, share it with a friend, and then comment shared below, and I'll send you a private link to the training. Okay, here's what we'll cover in this video. Lesson number 1, how to write down your wants. I'll show you how to quickly and easily write down your dreams. This is an ultra practical exercise that really shouldn't take more than 10 minutes if done right. Then in lesson number 2, how to quantify each goal in dollars. So we're going to be a little crass. We're going to convert each goal into a rock solid monthly expense and add it to your calculator. And then finally, in lesson number 3, how to find your TMI. Not too much information, but rather your target monthly income. So we'll let the Dreamline tool crunch the numbers to find your TMI, automatically adjusting for margin of error, taxes, savings, etc. Makes it really easy. All right, let's dive in to lesson number 1, how to write down your wants. And I'm cracking a smile because it seems so silly that this is a lesson that I have to teach you how to do this. Don't we intuitively all know how to write down what we want? But I think all of us, including me, struggles with this part. And so I'm going to make it really easy today by giving you a tool to help you. And so let me share my screen. This is Nerd Sheets. This is a free app that we built. It is a briefcase of all of our calculators that we use to run our business. And you can either sign in or create an account if you don't already have an account. So I'm going to sign in using my existing account. And by the way, there will be a link to Nerd Sheets in the video description below, but you can also find it easily at nerdsheets.com. So this is all of our calculators that we use to run our local real estate business here in Fayetteville, North Carolina. But for today, you're looking for our Dreamline Builder calculator. And so you just click Open Calculator, and it's going to open a calculator that looks like this. And let me move my big ugly mug out of the way, make this a little easier. All right, so this is our Dreamline calculator, and it's really simple, but it's also really powerful. So over on the left, we're going to write down all the stuff we want. Actually, some of these are even needs. I'll get to that in just a moment. And then we're going to quantify in lesson number 2 how much they cost, right? And then there's some other little side items where you're going to have to set your savings buffers, etc. And that is a really important step that you can't leave out. So Dreamline calculator. Over here on the left, you're going to start by writing down all of your monthly living expenses. So this is like, it's kind of like a budget. So some of you guys already keep a budget. You could literally just copy and paste all of the items from your budget directly onto here. This is what it costs in order for you to live your life. And pro tip here, if you are married or you have some kind of long-term partner, I recommend that you do this process with them. Maybe it feels a little uncomfortable for you, or it's kind of weird to talk about your hopes and your dreams. It shouldn't be. I highly, highly recommend that you do this with your spouse or your partner. It'll make it that much more powerful. All right, so start by writing down your monthly living expenses. So, I mean, food, housing, electricity, water, auto insurance. Maybe you have life insurance, your car payment, fuel, your internet plan, your mobile plan. Literally write it all down. And these are just these are simple examples that I've already written down. These are not my living expenses, but I just made up like a fake life. All right. And then what you're going to do is you're going to skip down to the section labeled dreams. And under dreams, and you can always add more rows here just by right clicking on the row and then inserting more rows below. And you can just add them one by one. And And what you do under your dreams is you think about the lifestyle that you haven't yet achieved, but that you want, right? So think about things that you want, like, that magical trip to Paris. You want to take your wife or you want to take your spouse to Paris, right? And what we'll do, and I'll show you how to do this in the next lesson, is we'll quantify that and we'll build it into a monthly expense, right? Maybe you want to pay off your mortgage early. Maybe you want to save up and buy an investment property cash. Maybe you want to buy a Lamborghini. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. Whatever your dreams are, what I want you to do is write them down here, right? And the reason why is that those who fail to plan to fail, which is kind of like the tagline behind this calculator. But we need to figure out what it's going to take in order to make your dream lifestyle happen. Okay. And this process is going to get a little crass. Some people are going to feel uncomfortable. Oh, I don't really want to boil all of my dreams down into a monthly expense into dollars. However, making it specific is going to make it more likely that you achieve it. So there are studies that show that you are 42% more likely to hit your goals simply if you write them down, right? So if you want to literally increase almost by 50% the odds or the probability of you achieving your goals, write them down. And so you can do that here. So start by writing all of your manually write down all of your living expenses, okay? And then write down all of your dreams. And I just gave you a couple of examples, but you already know what your dreams are. What are those things that are stirred up deep inside of you that you know that you want to achieve, and that you know that real estate can be a vehicle to help you get there, but you're not there yet. So write those down under dreams, all right? And then carry over into lesson number 2, and we'll talk about how to quantify these. All right, let's talk lesson number 2, how to quantify your goals or your dreams in terms of dollars. So let's do it. I'm going to share my screen again and take you back to the calculator where we left off after lesson number 1. And now we have all of your living expenses, all the items written down on the left, plus hopefully you've written down some really cool dreams, stuff that you want to achieve over the next 1 to 2 years. And then over on the right, we're going to quantify them as a monthly expense. So your budget, your living expenses should be really easy, but you do want to be really expensive. So don't guesstimate here. Write down what you actually have budgeted, what you set aside monthly to spend on food, groceries, and eating out. Then also, write down your mortgage or your rent down to the cent, down to the penny. And then, what was your average water, electricity bill over the last 12 months? Average it right there, right? Your auto insurance, carpet. Go on down the list and be as specific as possible. So these should not be round numbers. You should calculate them down to the penny. And then you're going to come down to your dreams, right? So trip to Paris. How do you quantify that? How do you quantify a trip to Paris? Well, it's easier than you might think, right? So you could go and figure out what are the flights going to cost, right? So you could literally just go to Google Flights, right? Look up what it costs to fly from your city to Paris. And I'm going to give you a pro tip. Pick a good flight, right? Don't pick the Spirit Airlines or the Frontier. Pick a good flight, right? Something that is still going to be the same price, months from now or next year. Okay. Figure out the price. Then go on booking.com or wherever you like to book hotels and figure out what does a decent hotel cost to stay in Paris for however long you want to stay. Let's say it's a week or 2 weeks. You're going to go to Paris, right? So figure out the cost, right? Then figure out what you want your food budget to be. Maybe you want a little shopping budget. If you're in Paris, I'd recommend it. And then figure out what the whole trip is going to cost. And then I would recommend multiplying whatever that number is by like 1.05, just in case, because of inflation, prices go up over the next 6 to 12 months. 1.05 is going to build in some natural inflation buffer, right? So figure out what the total trip to Paris is going to cost. And for the purposes of our illustration here, let's just say that it was going to cost $5,000. It might cost a lot more, all depending on how nice you like to stay while you're in Paris and how much shopping you like to do. But let's just say it costs $5,000 and we want to take that trip in 6 months. So you would just divide $5,000 by 6 months and you would get $1,200 per month that you need to set aside for this magical trip to Paris, right? Or maybe you want to pay for it in 6 months, but you want the actual trip to take place 9 months from now. So whenever you want to pay for the trip, actually process the bookings, etc., that's your deadline. And so just the months till then, divided into the total cost of the trip. And that's how you would quantify as a monthly cost your trip to Paris. Make sense, right? And then you would just start rolling this $1,200 a month into a separate account, savings account, or you could pull it out cash, put it in an envelope. And that's how we do that, right? Or let's pay off the mortgage early, right? So how much is left on your mortgage? How many months do you have to pay it off? And you just take, let's say it was $100,000 left to pay off your mortgage. And rather than, taking the next 10 years to pay it off, let's say that you wanted to pay it off quickly in the next 3 years, right? So we would just take $100,000 divided by 36 months, and we're actually going to have to pay $2,778 per month. And so I'm just going to put, that's my mortgage, pay off the mortgage early. So I'm going to build that. That's one of my dreams, that I want to be debt free. I want to, I want the mortgage to be paid off, let's say. All right. So there you go. That's lesson number 2. That's how you quantify all of your hopes and dreams. And, and again, we talked about a Lamborghini, right? So maybe you want a Lambo. What is it going to cost, right? Maybe you're going to finance it. It's not my dream to have a car finance, but maybe it's yours. Okay. And so you figure out what is the monthly cost of a Lamborghini, or maybe you want to pay for it in cash, start saving up for it. Okay. And then you would just quantify it there. This is how you convert all of your dreams into a dollar figure. And once you can convert it into a dollar figure, you can add it to this column, and we're going to now calculate a target monthly income based off of those numbers. And that brings us to the third and final lesson, how to find your TMI. And again, TMI does not stand for too much information, your aunt that always overshares at Thanksgiving. No, it stands for target monthly income. And so I'm going to take you back to the calculator that we've been working on, and I'm going to show you the last step before you can calculate your TMI. All right. So what you want to do is, after you have written down all of your living expenses, all of your dreams, and then you quantified them in terms of dollar figures over here on the right, it's going to create an expense subtotal. So the expense subtotal of everything that I've written down is $10,377, almost $78 per month. And so that should be my target monthly income. That's how much I want to make in real estate, right? Wrong. Okay. So in order to set your target monthly income, there's a couple of other figures that we've left out. All right. So what you want to do is you want to set your savings buffers now. And so the first general buffer is just a general buffer. And so the general buffer means sometimes we have to build some margin of error into our lifestyle just in case we calculated things a little wrong. And so I would recommend that you have a general buffer of somewhere between 2 and 5%, just because there is some natural error in planning. And if you build a buffer, then you should still be able to hit all of your goals with the same TMI. And so I've set my general buffer to 3%. Maybe we want to take it down to 2%. That's fine, right? Then there's some other buffers that are typical amongst people in real estate, people that follow us. And so I'm going to show you how to use them. So the next buffer would be giving. I have this in here specifically because I am a Christian. I attend a local church, and so I tithe to that local church. If you're not religious or you don't know what that means, it's no big deal. It just means that I give 10% of my gross income to my local church. That may not apply to you. And so you could just set this to 0. Or maybe you don't tithe 10% to a local church if you're not religious, but maybe you do want to give, 5% of your of your income to another charity or some kind of cause that you're interested in. And so you could set that there. So I'm going to set mine to 10% tithing. Then I also am a big believer in saving for retirement. It's something that's not done often enough in our industry. Retirement, experts say you should be saving between 10 and 15%, maybe more, maybe up to 20% for retirement, just depending on how much you have to save and how much longer you still have to save. I generally recommend 15% invested in good growth mutual funds will typically replace your current income in about, somewhere between 15 and 20 years. So if you're like most of us, then 15% will get you to your goals relatively quickly. And then you also have to plan some kind of tax savings. So obviously we are 1099 self-employed in the real estate business. And so you're going to have to set your tax buffer. So whatever your gross effective tax rate is every single year. And after expenses, after everything, after all of the deductions that we're able to take, typically I see in this business that if you use a good tax professional, that your effective tax rate is around 15%. It also depends on what state you live in. So some states don't have income tax. And so, maybe that's you, maybe it's not. What you want to do in order to set this correctly is you just want to figure out what your effective tax rate is. So you could go back over the last 3 years and figure out, okay, what was my gross and then what was my actual tax bill, and divide your tax bill divided by your gross, and that'll tell you your effective tax rate from your gross. And it's the easiest way to figure it out. And so maybe you do that and you figure out, oh man, I'm only paying 13%. So you could set that there. So you just want to set your savings buffers here. And then what I would recommend is whatever the raw amount is on a monthly basis, I would roll that into a separate account. So it's being saved completely separate from your normal checking account. All right. So now that we've set those buffers, now let's scroll down and see what's happening at the bottom of the calculator. All right. So you remember we have our expense sub total, which is, this is a simple addition. We're figuring out what it's going to cost in order to make all of this happen. All right. Then we've got a 2% buffer. And so I think for some reason this is off. This buffer is a little off. So yeah, this is off. Let me just fix this real quick. I'm not going to reshoot the entire video. I hope you guys are forgive me. I was playing around with it right before we got on here, but this will be 100% correct, and it'll work when you download the calculator and you use it. You can take that to the bank. All right. Then we've got our savings, and savings is going to be both retirement and tax savings together. It's going to add both of those together and give it as one figure. And then you've got your giving. All right. And then all of those combined are going to add up to your true target monthly income, or your TMI. And what I would recommend is that you take this number down to the penny, right? So your target monthly income for this imaginary agent that walked through this exercise is $17,073.12. And you're going to take this TMI and you're going to copy and paste it into the TMI input for our reverse engineer calculator. And we have a companion video. You can look it up here on our YouTube channel and watch the reverse engineer video. And now you have a very specific TMI that you can plug directly into that reverse engineer calculator so that you can now find your lead number. And there you have it. And that's it. That's how you set goals as a realtor. It doesn't have to be this vague, nebulous, woo-woo experience. Simply write down what you want and then break it down into a monthly expense. Your next step is to take your new target monthly income, or your TMI, and plug it into our reverse engineer process to find your lead number. You can get the full 1-hour training plus all the tools for free. All you have to do is like this video, share it with a friend, and then comment shared below, and we'll send you a private link directly to the training. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Our channel is growing like crazy, all thanks to you guys. Look, we've doubled our real estate business 3 times since 2019. If you want the full breakdown, exact scripts, step-by-step processes, and our brand new tool, drop a comment below.
No gimmicks, no paywalls. We're sending it completely free because we know it works.
Just type "send it" in the comments and we'll get it to you ASAP.
And if this was helpful, stick with us. We're dropping more strategies twice a week. Hit subscribe so you don't miss what's next.